Good evening. I'd like to start the January 11th meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission. Call to order. Start with the land acknowledgement statement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lishan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. We have the approval of the minutes. Any comments on last month's minutes?
Do roll call real quick?
Oh, when do we do that? Yeah, should have done that already, sorry. Jumping ahead.
Commissioner Abbott?
Here.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Here.
Commissioner Chin?
Here.
Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner OG?
Here.
Commissioner Sainberg? Here. And Chair Kent?
Here. Now, approval of minutes. Any comments from last month's minutes? Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes last meeting.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Chin?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner OG?
Yes.
Commissioner Sainberg?
Yes.
And Chair Kent?
Yes. Public comment?
No public comments, no hands are raised.
Thank you. Item 4, announcements from staff and commissioners, reports and updates.
Actually,
Oh.
sorry, we do have a hand raised.
All right, let's go back and listen to comment.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. You know, regarding the land acknowledgement statement, it's just hard to accept the fact that it's a statement and nobody's doing anything. It doesn't seem to be a living statement. You know, it's just something we read. It's a formality. It's like we forgot. And I'm just wondering what this commission is doing to honor that land acknowledgement statement. Land. Not houses, not apartments, land. Everything we build on, everything we walk on, it's a land acknowledgement statement. Talking about a genocide. A genocide took place. People were killed. And so how are we going to repay this? How do we make a genocide good? How do we repay back someone for a genocide that took place? You know, it'd be nice if we named Albany Hill Ohlone Hill, or one of the parks, Ohlone Park. I mean, we have Ohlone Greenway. It's just not enough. You know, Memorial Park. What are we remembering? Memorial? What are we remembering there? The genocide? Should be not Memorial Park. It should be Native American Park. You know, and it's so easy to give respect back. All we got to do is change the name. How hard is it to change a name? Update the town charter. That's about it. And it's just month after month after month and year after year goes by, and it's the same old thing. Just another day. It's just this land acknowledgement statement. We read it, and we read it, and we read it, and that's about it. So, I mean, I would just like to see this commission take pride in acknowledging that land acknowledgement statement and make a difference for the Ohlones. Name a park after them, something. open space. You know, make turkeys, you know, Albany treasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
And that's it.
Moving to announcements, item 4. First, starting with the commission, any announcements? Any things you visited, places you went? Okay. Staff?
And I don't have any announcements tonight either.
I have 2 announcements. The first one, just give a quick update on the tree appeal that went before the council on December 4th. This was the tree at 1444 Portland, and it came before the commission on the 12th. Does other people get a little bit of feedback? Yes, and we're trying to figure out where that's coming from.
They're going crazy, like, what is it?
If anyone has a microphone on, maybe turn it off, or on your laptop, maybe? No? Okay, I don't know what it is, and it's, oh, we have the expert coming in now. So the commission, or the council heard the appeal. There was some new information that was presented. There were really 2 issues. There was a large branch that fell. We're not entirely sure on the date because it was hung up in the tree, but it was somewhere between late September and early October when we were hearing the meeting, and it was a fairly significant branch, 6 inches in diameter, about 15 feet long. That, plus we dug into the sidewalk issues a little bit more, where we confirmed that the sidewalk was replaced in May 2016, and then in our 2020 survey of the city public right-of-way, it already had shown close to an inch of offset. So kind of those factors caused us to change our recommendation from retain to remove, and council accepted that. So we have a fairly detailed staff report, and you can always watch the video on the website. That was the one we decided to keep, yes. So the second thing that I have is we set the date for the Creek stakeholders meeting for Cordesis Creek, and that's going to be on February 7th. It's the day before our next meeting, so we didn't have another chance. We just sort of finalizing things today, so it's going to be going out more formally next week. Anyone who had signed up for the meeting last year will get an email invite, assuming we have your email. And then we're going to push it out through our channels as well as UC and City of Berkeley. And there's some really exciting things. I don't know if you've walked the new bike path between, 10th and 8th and 10th. It's really come together nicely, and that should be done kind of around that time frame. So it'll really showing some good progress.
Thank you. Number 5, presentations, street tree management plan. It's,
Okay,
Wait.
good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeff Bond. I'm the Community Development Director, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. We're going to do kind of a team approach, so you'll be hearing from all of us, starting with me. And Jamira, if you could promote Sutton Payne up as a panelist. He's in the audience as an attendee on Zoom. Sutton is our current Civic Spark Fellow. I'll spend just a moment talking about that. Some of you may be familiar with the program. We've been using it for years, where we bring on people that have just graduated, finished their undergraduate studies, interested in sustainability and municipal government, and they do a one-year fellowship with us. And so Sutton began back in the fall, and year before, last year it was Natasha Gallatin who was here and started working on the street tree master plan. Sutton has picked it up. Natasha, incidentally, is working now in the Public Works Department, so you may be seeing her from time to time as well. Anyhow, I'd like to start with just a brief introduction and overview, then I'll turn it over to Sutton to show you some work he's done on establishing a web page. It's still a work in progress, but we wanted to show you what we've got so far. Then I'll turn it over to our consultant team to go into the details of their work so far. And then Public Works Director Mark Hurley will wrap it up. So bear with us as we do this. So I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. This is an overview and kind of a review for members of the commission. I think you've heard all this before, but I thought it would be good for you and for members of the public that might be joining in for the first time, a little bit about what we're doing. First of all, the street tree management plan is something that we've been talking about for quite a few years. It was identified in our general plan that was adopted back in 2016. It was also identified in our most recent climate action and adaptation plan, which was adopted in 2019. And finally, among other places, it was identified in the City Council's strategic plan, which they adopted early last year. We're trying to execute on these commitments that we've made over the years to bring this forward, to develop policies and programs to improve our street trees. Phase 1 has been completed. This was essentially an inventory exercise. We had a separate firm named Arbor Pro complete that inventory. There's now, and this has been loaded into our GIS system. There's also a viewer that's on our webpage, so you can click in and see individual trees, sites, and get some statistics about each individual tree. That's a tool that our current consultants are using, and we'll give you more information about in a few minutes. Phase 2 is the work that we're just beginning with Hort Science Bartlett Consulting. We went through an RFP process back last spring and summer. City Council approved their contract in September and had a study session in October, kind of a kickoff study session in October to give us some preliminary direction. What I thought I would do is take a moment to review some of the feedback that we got from the City Council. And this is all in the staff report that we prepared for you for this meeting, but just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, and again, for those who might be watching that haven't had the opportunity to look at the staff report. Council, and I'll just kind of paraphrase here, but the council raised a few things that they wanted to make sure we paid attention to. First of all, over the overarching importance of developing an urban canopy, and as part of that, a risk assessment for the health of the urban canopy. They mentioned an interest in a cost estimate for maintenance, policies for the potential of realigning, moving sidewalks to support the development of trees, and obviously a common element of a street tree management plan, which is identification of appropriate species. They also talk about fire hardening, root systems, and dealing with underground utilities. They also expressed a few other things here, again, just briefly summarizing them. They wanted a better understanding of the benefits and challenges of increasing the size of planting strips and to support the health of the tree. They're interested in some data that would help support improving the city maintenance of street trees, and including kind of the costs and staffing that would be associated with that. Also interested in addressing the city's liability for open tree wells, kind of the trip hazards and so forth. And then finally reiterated the importance of an ongoing public education program to share with the public the importance of a good street tree system. I also wanted to acknowledge the feedback that the Commission has given in your previous discussions about this. We will be getting to these items as we move along, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we hadn't forgot about them. One is the importance of developing a shared community vision for our street tree program. And another one was the importance of making sure that we take into consideration the aesthetics of street trees, make sure we have a program that supports those objectives. We will be reviewing city ordinances and policies. What we have on the books today is quite outdated. We know that, and we want to modernize that and bring it really into best practices of municipal government. We also know that we'll need to look at our staffing and funding requirements to have a successful program. And associated with that are then performance indicators to know where we're doing a good job and where we need to do a better job. And finally, again, developing an ongoing public education and outreach program that goes beyond just the period of time that we're preparing this plan. So that's my quick introduction. At this point, I'm going to stop my screen share and hand it over to Sutton Payne. Sutton, if you could give the Commission and public a preview of your work on this project webpage.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. You confirm you guys can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. And we see your screen.
Great. Well, appreciate it, and thank you for the introduction. Nice to meet the rest of the commission, and I look forward to working with you. This is just a preview of the website that I've been updating with past actions, updated pictures, and then the updated community viewer as we've been working on the plan. This is available online now for citizens to access. I'm just going to run through the pages to get you all's feedback. The main page just introduces you to the plan itself, discusses the project, its goals, how it's connected to our CAP, as Jeff was mentioning, and then gives a quick background on the two phases with a link to the community viewer if the public wanted to use that as well. And then as you scroll down here, there's a list of all the past actions that involve the tree plan, with the most recent being a study session that was held with council going over next steps and policy guidance. That was in October. And we intend to keep this pretty updated so that the public can stay in tune with what we're doing. Then we scroll over to the urban forestry in Albany page. This is more of just a general page connecting the street tree program to the urban forestry goals of the city. This will connect you to the urban forestry homepage, and then also reiterates the street tree planting program and how it's free for residents, gives planting application, accepted tree list, as well as tree responsibility guidelines, and then some street tree do's and don'ts. So yeah, and then we'll move on to the benefits of street trees. Hopefully we can keep updating this with more Albany specific benefits, but just gives a slight connection to why we're doing the street tree program and the goals behind the CAP. One benefit being environmental, one being social, and then one being economic. And yeah, hopefully we can update this as we move through the plan with specific progress points and pictures. And then we move over to the Get Involved tab, which will have upcoming events, links to the agendas, and to the Zoom meetings. Obviously, this is the one that's going on right now. Yeah, and then we wanted to leave a space for the public to give feedback to the city and then also to the consultant team. So they can leave all their information here, give their message, their critiques, their comments, and that will go to both us and the team, and we hope to work on it together. And then the last thing that we wanted to engage with the public on at the moment is pushing an e-news subscription to the street tree management program itself, which we're going to be working on. But yeah, that's everything for now. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'm going to pass it off to the consultant team to take it from here.
One quick question is, are we going to be able to ask questions about the website and discuss that later or now? Or?
Of course. I think why don't you let us run all the way through it, and then all of us would be happy to answer any of the questions that you might have.
Okay, great, thanks.
Whoops, I need this back just for a second to share the screen. There you go. The down arrows should do it.
I don't think that's the updated one. I think I have the updated one that I just got.
Never mind.
I need the sharing.
While we're going back and forth, I'll introduce myself. I've been here several times before, so thank you again for having me this evening. My name is Daria Barar, and I'm the Managing Consulting Urban Forester and Arborist at Fort Science Farley Consulting. And I have with me tonight Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan Suttle. Nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones here. I'm a consulting arborist and urban forester at Fort Science, part of the consulting as well, working on this plan with Daria. And we're excited to show you all what we've been up to. Get this going.
Thank you, and I apologize for the last minute change. As with some other folks in the room, you guys can, what's the right word for it? I forget what the right word is. Sometimes we make changes right up until the last second, so.
Just to confirm, what's on the website is the older version? Okay.
We will update it after the meeting.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
really quite minor changes, but we felt that they were important, so. All right. Can I have that?
Yes, I'm driving.
We'll just flag mark down.
All right. So you can move on to the next slide since we've introduced ourselves. So tonight we're going to talk about our project overview and timeline. We're going to talk about the benchmarking work that we've already begun, and we're going to have a little discussion, very short discussion on kind of the direction that we're going.
Daria, can you do me a favor and move the mic? Yes, there we go.
Pardon me. All right. So what is a street tree management plan? It's a little bit like a clearinghouse for all things street trees in the city of Albany. So you should be able to go to this document and find information ranging from all of the activities that will be completed in the right-of-way. Additionally, we are hoping that you will have a good understanding after reading this document of what sort of the snapshot in time and where we plan to go in the future. Should also give us a little bit of a roadmap of how we get there. So hopefully, over time, it will be updated with small pieces of information that will allow us to continue to use the document on a regular basis rather than just sitting it on a shelf. We are hoping to balance the benefits of trees and the management of trees in an urban environment. So we are also hoping to promote and really understand the aesthetic characteristic that trees provide in the right-of-way. So on our timeline, we are working on benchmarking, and we're hoping to complete our benchmarking sort of phase of the project by the end of January. We're hoping to share some recommendations around cost and other such things towards the end of February, and we're hoping to set canopy and general maintenance goals in the spring. Okay, so benchmarking. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to talk about the first phase of our benchmarking.
Okay, so the first step in managing any sort of resource is defining that resource, which we've taken steps to do, or rather Albany has through the street tree inventory that was done in 2020. We took a little bit deeper of a dive into the data to assess what this resource represents first, and then what benefits it brings to Albany. So to start us off, just a summary look at tree condition here. The good news is that most are in good condition. You can see that over 50% fall into that good category. Trees with good vigor, good structure. They'll generally require less maintenance than trees in fair condition. Fair condition trees often had minor or moderate structural defects, potentially weak branches that could be mitigated with pruning. And poor condition trees were declining, decayed, topped, things that might represent a more immediate maintenance potential. But to bring it back, most trees were in good condition, which was heartening to hear, to say the least. Mark, can you move on to the next one? So next we took a look at what species are in the street tree population here in Albany. This is a snapshot of the 15 most common species encountered. And I'll start off with the good news again. There's very good species representation. An adage of urban forestry is, in general, you don't want more than 10% representation of a single species. Only one species, crepe myrtle here at the top, exceeds that 10% guideline, and it's really not by that much. Others aren't really even that close. One thing that stuck out to us is the small mature size of most of these species. So these are the light-colored trees, especially the top two, crepe myrtle and water gum, are quite small, topping out at between 25 and 30 feet. So the benefits that these trees present are commensurately smaller than larger trees. But we still have some medium trees in the red maples, southern magnolia, ginkgo, and some larger trees that I'm sure we're all familiar with now, sweet gum being the most populous one, camphor, London plane, those common urban forest trees. But yeah, all things said and done, good diversity, and some climate-forward species that we are looking forward to work with. So we know what we have, we know what condition it's in. What are the trees actually doing for the city of Albany? Sutton kind of started to touch on this before with the general benefits of trees. We took a deeper dive into the benefits that these specific trees are bringing to the city here. We used the software iTree Canopy. It is a collaboration between ISA, the Arbor Day Foundation, and the United States Forest Service that estimates the benefits that trees bring and the canopy cover. So based on a survey of over 500 data points throughout the city, we estimated land cover classes. Overall, trees accounted for 19% land cover. However, only a fifth of that were trees in the right-of-way. Most trees were either private, park, or in other areas. Another thing that stuck out was the high proportion of impervious surfaces. About 68% land cover is impervious. As I'm sure we all know, these impervious surfaces lead to the heat island effect, and something that trees are really good at mitigating. So it really frames how important trees are going to be in creating a sustainable and resilient landscape here. To dive down just one more level here, looking at the air pollution benefits that the trees provide. These figures are for all trees, so street trees account for about 20% of each of these figures. Albany is near several major highways, emissions from cars, the particulate matter, ozone is an indirect emission as well. And we can see this reflected here. Those are the two most important benefits in terms of both raw amounts and the monetary amount. So these variables are presented in the raw amount estimated that the trees filter from the air. And to kind of frame it in a figure that's a little bit easier to understand, it gives a dollar value to that service. I would have a hard time imagining 10,000 pounds of ozone, but I can see that $14,000 a year is a pretty significant benefit that these trees are giving the city. Another benefit that was specifically called out in the Climate Action Plan was carbon storage and sequestration. So we looked at that as well. This first row, the annual sequestration, represents the amount of carbon that the trees are pulling from the air and storing in woody tissue every year. The second row is the amount that the trees have already pulled out. So you can see that there's some pretty significant numbers here. About just under $1.5 million worth of carbon is stored in trees currently. And they only continue to store more. As the trees go larger, this will compound, and it really frames how important it is to keep trees, particularly large trees, in the landscape to hold on to that benefit.
All right, so in terms of maintenance, we've been talking a lot about that tonight already, but one of the things that we wanted to look at was our cities around us. What are they doing? So in terms of maintenance, we looked at 8 cities, and all of the cities that we looked at partner with residents to maintain trees in the right-of-way. So that can go anywhere from asking adjacent property owners to come out and water their newly planted tree or call the city when there's a branch down, stuff like that. All cities do that. And 7 cities that we spoke with are actively maintaining trees in the right-of-way. So they have a maintenance program that comes in and does maintenance. Only 1 city in the area has a maintenance agreement similar to the way that Albany is handling the maintenance of care of trees in the right-of-way. So that was an interesting finding. So active maintenance price ranges for trees. The cities that we looked at are their cost per tree, which is a little bit a wonky number because you're not actually paying that per tree, but their budgets generally calculate out to be about $30 to $100 per tree in the local cities around us. So proactive maintenance versus reactive maintenance is a very big distinctor for us. One of the cities, or several of the cities, are reactive maintainers of trees in the right-of-way. That means that they're only coming out if there's a problem, right? So if there's a branch down or something like that, they're coming out, they're cleaning up the tree, they're doing sort of reactive maintenance. Proactive maintenance programs usually put tree maintenance on some kind of pruning cycle, and there's minimal pruning outside of the sort of scheduled time frame. So they'll go through the city, they'll break it up into parts, and they'll do maintenance in sort of a more sequential manner. Proactive maintenance, we found in our research, is much lower cost. And when cities are kind of one-off reactive pruning, the cost is much, much higher. So one-time pruning costs for individual trees in the right-of-way ranged in our findings from about $75 a tree to about $300 a tree, and $300 a tree is a little low if you're counting very large trees, very large mature trees. So it's really dependent on size, these costs that I've given. So it's a little bit hard to give you a range, but I wanted to say something here to help you understand what kind of cost, one-time pruning cost would be for a tree pruned on that proactive pruning cycle. All right, so we also took a look at the community survey that was performed in the later part of the spring and early part of the summer. And we understand that it was only open for a limited amount of time, but we really wanted to use it as our at least kickoff piece of sort of community understanding of how people feel about trees. So one of the first things that popped out to us is that people feel very strongly about trees in Albany, which is great. And Mark, if you could continue on to the next slide, we'll dig in a little bit deeper. So here you can see that this is kind of a breakdown of what people rated as being very important versus not important at all. And as you can see, as you get into these slightly important, less important, not important at all areas, there's very low numbers, right? They're pretty much all under 10. So people had very strong feelings. So if you move forward, we can see that the top 3 most important items were shading and mitigating the heat island effect that Ryan was talking about, air quality improvement, and neighborhood aesthetics. So really 3 very, very common desires for trees, and something that trees really do for us well in the urban environment. All right, so 51% of respondents were in favor of the city taking more responsibility as far as maintenance goes for trees in the right-of-way. And with trees come common concerns, and we found in the survey that respondents were concerned about sidewalk damage and sign blockage. But you can see that there was quite a lot of things that folks had to say about these issues, and in reading the comments, everyone had very strong opinions, and that was really good to read. So We also found that the preferred communication, we thought we would bring this up because it is important for us and our work moving forward, that the preferred communication was through the city, which is, we've been working with the city on the website and getting information and pieces of our work up onto the website, and we will continue to do that in the future. But also through webinars. So if someone wanted to make a comment that that's not the best way to reach certain communities, that would be really helpful for us. I think we're hoping to learn just as much as we are hoping to provide information. So those are really helpful comments for us. All right. So our last slide is going to be just a quick little discussion here about what we're working on for the future. So we're going to be focusing a little bit on the cost of shifting the shared responsibility to the city and what that might look like, how that might work, and trying to piece through what that might be like for the city of Albany. And we are going to look at the cost of growing the urban canopy, what that kind of means. What does it mean when you say, I want to plant 1 million trees in Los Angeles over the next 5 years or what have you? What does that mean in terms of a value for the city and for the property owners that are going to need to partner with the city on that? And we're going to be working through a community engagement piece. So we hope that you all will stay engaged and that you will put us in touch with your neighbors and active participants. So thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel? Julia?
Yeah, I have some clarifying questions about the slides, but just because you just talked about the project time, the next steps, is there what's the next sort of point in your process?
Point of engagement, like here?
Yeah, here, or in terms of the draft plan, whatever the next thing is.
So the next piece is just finishing up the benchmarking. So that will be at the end of the month, I think. And as soon as we have something that's kind of cohesive and comprehensive, we'll put it up on the website.
Okay. So is there a sort of ballpark date that a draft plan would be created, or is that not in the works?
I don't think that we have a date for a draft plan at this point. Yeah.
Would it be safe to say that as we get more, we can put together more of a project schedule and then post that on the website so that people get a sense of when things are going to happen? Sure. But I anticipate we're going to come before the commission 3, maybe 4 times throughout this process, and maybe we'll put those as milestones or dates we'll check in.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think we'll be back before we have a draft plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because one of the key pieces is really community engagement and public education. So that, to me, we're in the sort of learning phase, and yeah, as we move through that, we'll need to get community input.
So I just have some clarifying questions about the slides, if you don't mind. If you could go back to, I think some of the tables.
Yes.
In the first, let's see, sorry, I don't know which one it was. I didn't put the name of the slide, the number, unfortunately. So if you could keep on going back.
The iTree slides.
These two, actually. This question here. Is that an actual estimate of what Albany's current urban canopy value is?
Yeah, that is the result of a study of just Albany's canopy.
Okay.
They're not
Albany's
exact numbers.
street tree canopy.
This is the whole canopy.
Oh, right.
Street tree accounts for 20% of these values.
But
it is
that's
an
the
estimate.
whole canopy of, and I only should be partly contextualized as like climate mitigation benefits, right? Because there's other like aesthetic or whatever benefits that aren't necessarily quantified here.
You can't quantify those.
Right. No, I understand, but I just want to like sort of make clear that that's not just a.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is air pollution, as it says in the title of the table.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
And then, When there was that impervious, there was some slide about
Yes.
this, yes.
Yeah, right here.
So what does that mean, 68%
Yeah,
impervious
so
surfaces?
impervious surfaces, things like concrete, roads, stuff that water can't penetrate.
Meaning that's where the trees are covering, is that what you
That's
mean?
where the trees are not covered.
Are not
Or
covering.
at least not directly over, so it can help shade these impervious surfaces from the sun that radiate heat back out and create that heat island effect. But yeah, impervious surfaces, those include buildings, streets, driveways.
So the tree canopy is currently not covering 68% of impervious surfaces? Just want to make sure that I'm understanding that. No? Am I saying it?
I think you said it right. I think what's maybe not clear is that city trees, again, so previously you said it was the whole city, not just city trees. So
Yeah.
is this city trees and private or just public?
What I'm picturing is that the analysis probably took is it correct to say that took like a Google satellite view and just looked at all the pixels and saw, is it tree, not tree, roof, road?
Exactly.
And of all those pixels, 19% of them were tree canopy, 68% of them were roof or road, basically.
Essentially, yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. Okay.
Yeah, that would have been helpful to set up beforehand. Thanks for that.
Well, that doesn't seem right. 68% of Albany is impervious and not covered with canopy. That's
Like roofs, like
tremendous.
building roof, like every house roof,
Yeah, okay, I guess with the roofs, yeah.
every
I
business
suppose
roof.
that's right,
Yeah,
yeah.
every business.
Every street.
Every building, streets.
Yeah, okay.
It's quite a bit.
More questions?
More clarifying questions, if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
And then, so the next one was the maintenance, the proactive versus reactive. You didn't necessarily talk about Albany, so how would you characterize Albany's?
Well, Albany is not maintaining trees in the right-of-way, right? So the adjacent property owner, there's a maintenance agreement with the adjacent property owner where they take on the maintenance. So Albany would fall into the category of the other one city that has a maintenance agreement where private property owners are maintaining trees in the right-of-way.
And then that would be reactive, right? And then also when they,
That's not really, it doesn't count as either.
oh, interesting. It's
Yeah,
like
so-
none at all.
None at all. Yeah, exactly.
I could probably add some context. We probably have a foot in each camp where we do a lot of reactive work when there's, an issue, and we go out and take care of it. Plus, we do some proactive pruning around clearances, but it's not to a full maintenance level. So I think that's one of the struggles where we don't have very clear rules around responsibilities. So
Yeah.
And when you're doing maintenance to clear something or to pick up a limb or something like that, that is considered reactive.
Okay. And then, and just a question, because you did that survey. Do you know how often those other cities do prune? I don't know if maybe it's hard to describe that, but.
No, that's a really great question. The range is significant. I would say that most common is 5 years. And that doesn't mean that your tree is going to get maintained once every 5 years. It means that it will be inspected once every 5 years at the minimum. And the tree is not always, once every 5 years.
Okay, thanks.
Most cities.
Those are all my clarifying questions.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, yeah, I also have a few, but I think even just backing up from there, and I'm realizing maybe I don't understand what stage we're at in this process, because I think, it's really hard to look at both sides. I'm just looking this way at the commission here. Definitely a timeline would be really helpful, because I don't really know what kind of comments to provide right now. I should say this in 2 months, I can say it in 2 months if I can. So anyway, that would be really great. Maybe I'll just start with that vision statement. What, has that been created, or when will that be created and how?
No, it hasn't been created.
Okay.
And it will be created through an engagement process. And I think we'd love to hear your ideas about that tonight. There's no set methodology in the planning profession on how to do that. The trick is to get to people and talk to them about it. We'd certainly want to use community events when we can. These meetings would be really important. Online is becoming more and more of a way to engage with people. We really haven't started because we're still in the early phases of this, and we started towards the end of the year, and we didn't feel like there was any point in trying to really do an intensive engagement between November and December. But ultimately, I think as a time frame, maybe towards closure of a vision statement would be the city's annual community expo, which is in April. I wouldn't want to complete it until then, and that might be a good place where we kind of say, here's a draft, how to engage with people, which it brings in a lot of people. There are usually a few hundred people at that event. And between now and then, we can talk about, you can give us ideas, and we can go to different events, really start to build out our webpage, start to add some of this information into it so that people have something to react to.
Okay, yeah, so we're really kind of at the beginning. Okay, got it. So that will definitely bring my list down. And I just think the most important thing I want to say right now or share is ask is that we add an equity lens. I think our city has, I'm still learning our commitment to equity and our goals around that. I see we have an equity impact plan. But yeah, I mean, we are so lucky to even be talking about trees here and to enjoy the level of canopy that we have. But no doubt, I mean, if you notice, every time you cross an apartment building, you're in we're not dealing with, I'm from LA, and our urban heat problem is really bad, and that's what got me into this field in the first place. And it's really sad and very, very sad and devastating. But yeah, I think I want to say our renters probably really suffer the most, and that's me. I mean, you have a driveway. Many of our buildings have these weird driveways where the whole driveway can't have a tree in front of it. So it's just to start with, you already can't have a tree in the front of it. So anyway, and then if you can, what is our engagement and expectation of landlords who don't even live here? So that's an equity question for us to keep top of mind.
If I may just comment on that, I'm glad you mentioned the equity lens, and in fact, the community survey that was mentioned briefly, we got some really good feedback on that, and we'll use it, but we have to acknowledge it didn't really, it doesn't appear to have captured the equity perspective that we probably want to see. I think it was pretty concentrated to single-family homeowner responses. And again, great to have that, nothing wrong with that at all, but it doesn't answer all those questions that you're raising, so thank you.
Yeah, so let's keep talking about, the community engagement plan. I'd love to continue to talk about that. Thank you.
I'm sorry. One very quick, we're talking specifically about street trees, not park trees, correct? Because we use the term kind of generically here. I just want to be clear that we're just talking about in the park strip. Okay, not parks. Okay, very good then.
So, since this is we're at the very start, it's probably not a process to this, but when the gentleman was talking online, he says the community could give some feedback. Is there a process to how you're managing the feedback you get on a website?
The feedback from the website, we haven't gotten any feedback from the website yet, but it'll come to us and to the city, and so we'll be able to sort of deal with it as it comes. I'm hoping for a floodgate at some point, but hasn't come yet, so we'll get there hopefully.
And if I may add to that, we want to build out that page a little bit more so it's a little bit more robust so that when people do go there, they've got good information. It's not going to be perfect, but they've got good information. And in addition to us looking at that feedback, we'll make sure the commission and ultimately the city council see it as well.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I had a few questions. One was about the website. It looks like a great start. I did notice it's not done using the city's website. It's some third-party website. To me, that seems appropriate if it's just for the duration of the creation of the street tree management plan, just like when the Parks Master Plan was being worked on, that consulting group had its own website for a while for, about that whole process. But it seems like that wouldn't be good long-term. So one question I have is that external website that the intern is working on, is that meant to be like a permanent fixture on the city's webpage? It's not, but not part of the, see, like, will that be put on a city webpage, or is it short-term or long-term?
A couple of responses to that. First of all, it will archive that for sure when this is all done, as we try to do with any of the other past projects, so that information isn't lost. It'll be archived and ultimately available through links on the city webpage. We're in the early phases of migrating the city's webpage to a different vendor, and so that's probably going to happen over the course of the preparation of this study. So in this particular moment in time, probably wouldn't be a good time to start the new web host has a more robust community engagement system than what we've got today.
And that's going to happen this calendar year, you think, for the city's website?
It's not our project. We're working on it. When you see it as a member of the public, I don't know. But we're starting to work on it.
Okay.
I would add one more thing. My sense is at the end of this process, wherever we land on maintenance, we're going to do a fairly robust update to the urban forestry webpage that might incorporate a lot of the information, and that would be the living document going forward.
Okay. And how will people find that webpage? Will it be a link from the city, like from what city webpage will provide a link to this?
We'll try to put it all over the place.
Okay.
It's not there yet. Again, we want to kind of build it out to get to a point where it's worth going to. Once it is, we'll use whether they go to a public works page or a community development page or a news page or what have you. We'll try to push that link out and different engagement things that are associated with it.
Okay. And then one concern I might have is if it's sold as like the street tree webpage, but it isn't for the usual street tree things like ordering a new street tree or removing a street tree, then the public might get confused. So if it is for that too, then that's fine, but it would be to try to make it clear what that webpage is for that differs from what's on the standard street tree resources for the city. Then other questions I had from the later presentation was for benchmarking, how is vacancy measured? Because I saw there was a certain percentage of the street tree sites were vacant. And one question with that is that definitely some wells are small and they can only have one tree, but then some wells are a long strip of green and they could potentially have multiple trees. And so was there just is it just how many vacant wells there were, or was it if there's a big vacant well, like how many slots are not being utilized that could be utilized for street trees?
That data came from the Arbor Pro inventory.
Oh, so that would...
I can jump in on that.
Yeah.
I was involved in some of the discussions. I think this is really just an accounting of the established wells that didn't have trees. I think there's an opportunity to, like you said, co-locate trees in larger wells, as well as look at taking out concrete in the parking strip to create new wells. So I think there's more opportunity.
Yeah, like near where I live, there are some long strips that have multiple trees in them. So I just want to make sure that was getting counted properly. And then what you just mentioned also would be good to know of, like, where is there concrete where there could be a tree and for a street tree. And then, let's see.
Can I just add one more thing to that? One of the things that we were limited limited with in the inventory was we where there was a tree and there's no longer a tree, that's an easy one to deal with. When we do these other things like, hey, we can plant multiple trees, it's a little more difficult because then we run into the issues of utilities and other things that aren't obvious and were beyond what the firm doing the inventory was looking at, so.
They didn't map out the underground
No.
stuff, yeah. And then I would add, on the feedback on what kind of things need to be done with street trees is the need for trimming them up. So I don't know at what point it would be to bring that into the discussion, but as I know, as I walk around town on sidewalks, if I have to dodge a limb or if there's a bunch of, trees encroaching on the sidewalk and you just have to kind of walk around them, sometimes I'll bring them up to the arborist or to Public Works and say, hey, this needs to be cleared out, it's a hazard or something. So if there was something that could put that in the plan, that would be good. And then equity lens that was brought up, I wanted to mention that that's important to me as someone that lives on the west side of town, and we don't have nearly as many like nice tree-lined streets. There are a lot more rentals and things like that. And some of the other parts of town that already have a well-established canopy, we've been hearing from them that they really miss that canopy when it goes away, if a tree that's diseased or has a problem is removed. But then there's parts of town that just don't have that to begin with. And so I think equity is important to look at for there as to where the resources are spent and that's a lens that everything is looked through. And that was it. Thank you.
Chair, I think I just wanted to make a point that the questions from the public haven't been offered, so if
We
we,
usually do that after.
yeah, but the commission's starting to make comments.
I think I'm starting to make
Yeah,
comments.
yeah,
Yeah, so
thanks.
just only
Well,
to respect
good
time,
point,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not really voting on this, so it's not like questions and then we discuss and respond. So it's a little vaguer, but I take your point though. But, all right, and Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I completely agree with our two commissioners here about the equity aspect. There's definitely a disparity on the amount of trees around the city, and I think definitely the community engagement aspect of this would be really important because I understand there's a lot of people in our city that don't really know what's happening and that this is even happening at all, and I think this is a really great opportunity to create some change here, so yeah.
Commissioner Abbott, any questions?
Yeah, I just have a question about, wondering, and maybe this isn't the time, maybe this will come out later, but when you talk, or you learned about the other cities and they had kind of these co-maintenance where they would work with the property owner, kind of share responsibility. I'm just curious about what sort of outreach or support or resources were provided for the property owners. Were they required to have a licensed arborist do any significant work? Were there training resources on how to prune a tree or anything like that on the website? Any sort of outreach? Maybe you didn't look that far into it. I'm just curious what you found.
For the cities that had a shared maintenance agreement?
A shared maintenance agreement when the city isn't, any of them, just when the city isn't just taking full responsibility for the tree, they're relying on the property owners. Were there requirements? Were there support, resources?
Other cities that don't maintain trees in the right-of-way don't because they don't have the budget to do that. So the budget is very limited in terms of requirements. So that's what I would say is that there's, when the budget is there, there's more information both on the website and through the city staff. And when there's more limited resources, there tends to be less information provided to the community.
And you didn't see anything about, has to be done by a licensed arborist or anything like that. It's just.
The one other
just
city?
Or whoever, yeah.
Yeah, regulations are all over the place around trees.
That's kind of
they're all over the place, so.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of what I figured. All right. I think that's what I have for now. Thanks.
I have a few questions. When you mentioned the sequestered carbon, is that just in the wood You're not including the leaves, or are you including the leaves, which seems to be a temporary sequestration?
That's correct, right?
Yeah, it's the total sequestration. You know, wood is mainly where it's going to be, especially with deciduous trees. Any carbon stored in the leaves is just going to be temporary. So even with conifers, needles only last for 3 or 5 years, so it's really not that meaningful in terms of carbon sequestration.
Okay, thank you. When you did the survey, was it, I didn't participate in it, unfortunately. Was it a multiple choice, or people writing, like, for instance, people mentioned issues with trees and they wrote down blocking signage, that seemed like something that's real, but it seemed like it's something that wouldn't come to people's mind necessarily. Was it just, were they checking off a list of things?
Yes, it was a survey monkey, and they were providing responses. But there was a comment section, I believe, for each individual question as well.
And the last one was, just when I was getting to get my head around and loving crepe myrtles and convincing myself how beautiful they were, they look now to be way over they're beyond our 10%.
Yes, not only are they beyond the 10%, but they're also a size class that doesn't provide a lot of benefit to the urban forest. So minimizing smaller trees is very important, and maximizing larger trees that have larger benefits, even if it means planting fewer trees, is something that we, in the urban forestry world, look at as being a very important key piece. Right, so if you could plant 3 trees, we would rather see you plant 1 tree that was a large tree with enough space to sort of grow big and maximize the benefits that urban trees provide.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
To follow up on that, you mean you would recommend the city spend, rather than spend like a small amount of money for each of 3 small trees, spend a large amount of money on a mature tree? Or
it's not really spending money, it's more
Like a
of a
variety.
space issue, right? So larger trees need more space.
So larger variety trees, you mean when they're mature, they're bigger? Or do you mean when you buy them and put them in the ground, they're bigger?
Yes, no, larger mature size. So a tree that has a mature size of 60 feet per se is going to need more space both above ground and below ground, right? So you can't plant a tree that it has a mature tree size of 60 feet underneath a power line, for example. But you can across the street. You also need a larger parkway in order to plant a tree with a mature tree size of 60 feet. So those key pieces are important, right? So it would be a recommendation to try and plant the larger trees on the sides of the street where there's no power lines, and to enlarge tree wells. So if you were able to plant, say, 3 crepe myrtles along a right-of-way, instead of planting 3 crepe myrtles, you would go for the sort of larger tree and maybe only be able to plant 1.
Okay. So I would encourage you to try to be clear on that distinction with the public, because we have had times when a large mature tree has been cut down, and people in the public will say, we'll say, okay, but yes, we're cutting down a few of these very large established trees, but we're always replanting. And they'll say, oh, but can't you replant can't you put a big tree in the ground right now?
Yes.
And because we missed this canopy, well, in 20, 30 years, you'll have the canopy back, but that's not what they want to hear.
Right.
So try to clarify if you're talking about the variety itself, its mature size, or at the time of planting, how big the tree is.
Yes.
Okay.
And one more comment too. It looks like you have, when you add up the percentage of trees under the different 15 species here or so, you only come up with 65, which means there's quite a diverse number of species that aren't on this list, right? Maybe there's 1 or 2 of certain species.
There are many other species that are just not that proportionally represented in the population.
Do you have any idea how many different species there are?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can follow up with you on that.
That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, can we, public comment? Any questions from the public?
I don't see any hands raised online.
Okay, then, more questions or comments from, we'll bring it back again. Now we can, we've asked a lot of questions and expounded, but now we have more time, so.
Yeah, I just had a comment, a question sort of about that. Thank you so much for the benchmarking. That was really interesting. And I also initially was confused. I thought it was with the size that they are right now as they exist. But this is more like the capacity for them to
Yes,
grow.
the capacity,
Yes, the
exactly.
canopy capacity. Yeah, and I think
Size.
it's really good that you all are doing this and kind of educating us, because I think here on the commission, we're often, it's also often told to us that, you know, there's appropriate tree sizes, and I think there's a balance to be, you know, there's a balance that needs to be stricken. Because appropriate might mean small capacity, and that's maybe not what we want in terms of benefits and what the public really wants, so.
Yeah, it's important to plant with the sort of right tree, right place attitude, right? Because all trees have characteristics, or tree species have characteristics, and matching those characteristics with the location that you're planting. So I think everyone has an understanding from living in an urban environment that some places have more room than other places, and it's just a sort of matchmaking of what the right tree is for that location.
Yeah, so that's one of the Albany's big problems. I think a lot of us envision beautifully big, tall trees and street line, but we don't have the space. And so, to John's credit, he realized that, and he's putting a lot of crepe myrtles in there, and then we have this issue where we're taking out big mature trees, which are heaving sidewalks and falling on things, but they're beautiful, and putting in little, easily small trees that are well-behaved, but we're losing a lot of benefits from that. So I was ready to kind of give up on a lot of the big trees and just accept small trees. Do you think in our small area between, or, you know, or given 4 feet at the most, or even 3 feet strips, we could get large trees in there with certain detailing?
I mean, we have to. That's the climate future that we're looking at, right? So we have to find a way to maximize benefits while also working within the confines of the urban environment. That's the work that we have. So that is what it is. Every city struggles with these same hurdles.
And also just, I mean, I think just a point on that is that just because the existing well size might be small, there might be more, we can think out of the box a little bit in terms of like making the well bigger. Also, I know just like on Washington where a lot of those mature trees were cut down, they actually had pretty big wells. They had huge trees that outgrew, but they had big wells, and I'm afraid that we did just stick a crepe myrtle on some of them, where that's not the highest potential use for that space. So
Exactly.
I do think that we should reconsider, because they were just planted, you know, they're 1-year-old, but there's, I think, as we get this information, we can really be thoughtful about maybe even planting a bigger tree in something that already has a tree, and to maximize the potential. But anyway, because that number seems really high, the small. How would you say that compares to other cities?
You know, from what I've seen, it's certainly more small stature trees than in other places. You know, we can just see that from the top two. These crepe myrtle and water gums are very small. But like you said, there are places that big trees can be planted. And to not miss out on those potential benefits, special attention should be paid to that for future planting.
And I would say there might be an opportunity here to have a program to encourage folks to plant large trees in their yards where they do have the space.
Absolutely.
Because we're only talking about the street trees. And
Right.
That's only, you know, it's limited, so, yeah.
Sure.
Can you go back to the slide on costs where it was like $30 per year to $100 per year, and on your benchmarking, and then single pruning was something like $75 to $300. So the one-time pruning costs range from that to that, and the active maintenance ranges from that to that. So clearly it is a multi-year cycle for the pruning costs. And you were saying that it's significantly cheaper to do I guess, a whole block of tree, a whole chunk of trees at a time than it is to just respond to things. And so one thing you might bring up, or you might ask the city about, staff about, Public Works about, is the city is already familiar with that type of idea with the sidewalk program. So if the city just responded to individual sidewalk problems, apparently it would cost significantly more than, or if each homeowner contracted somebody to fix the sidewalk in front of their house, what we're told is that the city is saving a ton of money in a sense. I mean, the cost per sidewalk repair is a lot cheaper for the city to do this with a huge swath of, keep the crews going, doing multiple spots a day, that kind of thing. So the cost per repair is cheaper by having a maintenance plan and doing a bunch at a time. So if you could bring that up to when you do present things to the city council, that would be good.
That brings up the next question. Yeah, everybody would like to have the trees maintained by the city, but it comes at a cost. And does the city, how would the city, is that something that we have to float to the voters to?
My sense is we would, wherever we land, we'll need to find some way to fund that. My sense is what we've done and what we've been actually fairly successful in other systems, utility systems and sidewalks and whatnot, is once we know the rules, we can put together a pretty effective program and implement it. There's the policy side and then the funding side, because it would increase our street tree budget significantly.
Right.
I know Measure DD was passed. It's a general fund thing, but the voters were told it's for climate change related things, and it's been used for street tree related projects and to make street trees free for the residents to install, right? So in principle, that could be tapped into, but I don't know how much that money is and how much of it's already being used for other things.
More questions from the?
Yeah, maybe question, state, or comment. More of a question. Will we have like a kind of a Solano-specific engagement strategy, or I'm just thinking about the future or the couple tree issues that have come forward, and those are businesses. So it's kind of I feel like a unique situation. I don't know how, but they are expected. They're like any other land property owner, right? Expected, or is it different on Solano?
It's the same.
Right. It would be, yeah, the property owner would, whatever program that we come up with here, whether there's cost sharing or not, it would be the same on Solano as any place else. I think you make a really good point that focusing in on Solano Avenue and, maybe if you think about it, there might be other neighborhoods where we need to be very geographically focused, but Solano Avenue would be a great place to start.
And then maybe even piggybacking on that, I think it's a great idea, is to engage business groups, the small business groups and Solano Avenue Association, and so because yes, each business is owned by, the building is owned by somebody, the tree is adjacent to that owner, and so in a sense, they have a say in what happens there, but the whole association might have a vision that would be really good to hear about and get input on. And we know whatever groups are involved. I don't want to say it's just this one group, but whatever commercial group, and it's San Pablo as well, to engage the businesses as a group. Is there a vision here that people want to try to go for?
Had one comment, and I think this probably just didn't make the cut with the survey, but trees covering streetlights is kind of an issue. Albany's kind of underlit to begin with, and so then the trees cover them, and it's a problem. But as far as outreach is concerned, I tell you what I'm involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and we talk to business a lot. People move to Albany for the schools, so engage with the schools, engage with youth groups. scouting groups, whatever you can. That's a way to reach into houses. You're not going to get anybody else's attention. You're not going to get their attention because they're working somewhere else, they're busy, but they'll read what their kid brings home from school. So that's a suggestion.
I like that because as I'm listening, I'm wondering how confident you are to actually get engagement from the community, because people, like you said, people are busy running around. So there's a game plan on how to actually reach. I love the idea. I mean, my daughter goes to Ocean View, so I'm more involved than the average person. But how do we reach people who are busy running around to care about things that are important? How confident do you feel about getting that kind of engagement?
Pretty confident. During the pandemic, I was working with the city of East Palo Alto, and we were able to get a lot of community engagement, and that was oftentimes via Zoom and going to meetings where we had social distancing and really early pandemic phases. So pretty confident. People care a lot about trees. It's the one thing that draws people together, and people have a lot of opinions about trees, so people will show up for trees, in my experience.
One of our major boulevards, of course, is San Pablo, and it's a state highway.
Yeah.
Do we have control on the trees on that?
Yeah, our responsibility, so Caltrans has responsibility so it's all Caltrans right away. They have responsibility from curb to curb. We have from face of curb to back of walk is our responsibility.
Okay. So we don't have to review anything with them?
Oh, it's our responsibility, but they review everything and go through everything, so it's not.
They don't give us trouble. Okay.
It takes you 2 years to find out anything, right? I mean, yeah.
It's taken us a while to do the San Pablo Avenue Complete Streets project, partially because of
Right.
Caltrans review.
Any more questions?
Oh, I had a question. I guess going back to like maintenance with like the other cities. I know that you said earlier that it's a very wide variety of policies, but I guess like what does that kind of look like for most cities? Like, does it include like, I guess like anecdotally I've been hearing about like watering like young trees. Like, is that covered by most other cities or not really?
For the most part, there's a shared maintenance for stuff like watering. It really depends, though, because watering trees in California is absolutely crucial for the first 5 years. So if the adjacent property owner isn't going to participate in the watering, even if they do participate in watering, there's still it's still a big issue. So.
I did want to just comment quickly that I very much appreciated this being available early. We've had other things that's been the day before, but there were several days to look at this. I appreciate that. I know even if it changed later, that's fine. Good, strong draft. Appreciate that.
Good point. Well, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. Look forward to seeing more. So.
Great. Thank you all.
Moving on to item 6. Right? Yeah. No subcommittee reports. So we'll move right on to item 7, future agenda items.
So the two things come to mind for our next agenda. I think we need to do the reselection of the chair and vice chair, so that'll be on the agenda. And then I believe we're going to have Margot's team come and talk about Albany Hill. So I think that will be another high-profile, very interesting presentation.
Great. Any other future agenda items you want to discuss? All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.